Here's your office. I'll pay you cash. If you can fix this, I'll pay you cash for this.
Erik, I've been told that you also are somewhat of a one stop shop. Welcome to the Roots to Riches podcast, where we discuss all things business. On today's episode, we are featuring Dr. Shante Griggs of NCNM University, here based in Chicago. She is currently the CEO and has been for the last 5 years of the School of Naprapathic Medicine. We also have here today Erik Cascio. He is the founder of Golden Tree Wealth Partners and has been working with Dr. Shante Griggs for the last several months. Together, they've been able to accomplish quite a bit, and I'm looking forward to learning all about it. So, welcome. Happy to have you both here on the podcast today. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm well. I'm well. Can't complain.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Yes.
Well, Dr. Shante Griggs, do you mind telling me, for our listeners who may be unfamiliar, what is naprapathy and what benefits does naprapathic medicine provide to those interested in it?
Oh, wow. I love talking about naprapathy. So, naprapathy or naturopathic medicine, whichever one you like to refer to it as, it is a natural medicine. It is a physical medicine first and foremost. And by physical, it means manually. We're touching you. So it is based in natural medicine, and we're able to help treat connective tissue disorders. That is who we are, connective tissue specialists. So we're treating connective tissue disorders, and that is a very fancy way of saying pain. Any pain that you have in the body from head to toe, we are able to help your tissues.
Mhm.
Since we're connective tissue specialists, by you having connective tissue throughout your entire body, that's how we're able to help to affect those tissues. In addition to muscle tissue, nerve tissue, bone tissue, even though it's hardened tissue, but it's still a tissue at the core. So all of that combined, we're able to affect those tissues and helping to decrease pain overall in the body, increase circulation, and increase range of motion for patients. And we're able to do that naturally without medication, painful injections, or surgery. So it is a very highly specialized medicine, manual medicine. And we've been around for over 115, 16 years now that since we've been founded. Very quiet secret kept about it. Naturopathic medicine is a derivative of osteopathic medicine and also chiropractic medicine. They were all founded within maybe 6 to 9 years of each other in the state of Iowa. So when one was founded, maybe 3 years later, the next was founded. 3 years later, the next thing was founded. And it because of how it evolved. Our founder, Dr. Oakley Smith, was a former chiropractor, and he is someone that's named in a book that's out there called The Chiropractor's Protege, and it was authored by Timothy Faulkner, and he actually highlighted Oakley Smith's years when he was a chiropractor. So how did he find naprapathy? How did we end up here if that's where we started? Well, D.D. Palmer, who was the founder of chiropractic, hired him to do research to actually prove the subluxation theory of chiropractic. That's what's now differentiating these two forms of medicine, their theory, their approach, what their hypotheses about the disorders that they're treating, which are the pain disorders, the connective tissue disorders that we mentioned. So we do treat similar disorders because of that reason. Well, Oakley Smith did a little bit more studies and research with the anatomy and the physiology, and that is when he discovered the relationship of the connective tissues of the body to those disorders. And the connective tissues are the ligaments, the fascia network, the blood, lymph, those played a role as to why those treatments were not sticking that he found in his patients. So when he went back to his the community, the chiropractic community, with these findings, it was not well received. And that is when the professional relationship between the two ended. And at that time, he had hoped to evolve chiropractic with those findings. And he authored a book himself called Modernized Chiropractic. Still not received. And at that time, he left Des Moines, Iowa, moved to Chicago in the early 1900s, and opened the first school of naprapathy, which was the Oakley Smith School of Naprapathy. And that was in 1905. In 1912, he changed it to the Chicago College of Naprapathy. At the time, there were so many colleges just flourishing in Chicago, but
Mhm.
some of them had difficulties over the years. And another school that also got started around 19, and I'm actually going to say that was 1912, that the other school, National College and Property, got founded. They were the only two that were left by the early 60s, and the two of them merged into the Chicago National College of Naprapathy, which what the institution stands today as. So they came into the building that we have here on 3330 North Milwaukee, and early 2000s, we underwent another name change to the National College of Naturopathic Medicine. And that was really just to familiarize the public to know that this was a field of medicine, because they were unsure about that. So putting medicine at the end of it was the reason that they made that change. And we remained the National College of Naturopathic Medicine up until just last October, when
Mhm.
we underwent another transition and brand change to NCNM University. And that was inspired by the addition of academic programs beyond naturopathic medicine that we have here.
That's a really fascinating and rich history for the College of Naprapathy, I'll tell you what. So, thank you for sharing all of that. It's
Well,
impressive that you remember all of it, honestly, because there's so much to explore and kind of cover in such a long history of this particular field of medicine.
I had to take the naturopathic history course here.
That makes sense then why you are ready to go. I love it.
I
Uh,
can also just to kinda give a quick testimony, I've never heard of, naprapathy at all until I met Dr. Shante, and when she told me about it, I was going through probably 2 or 3 different chiropractors. I was going through therapy for my back pain. I had chronic lower back pain, and after one session, with one of her doctors, nearly like 90% of my pain was gone after one session, and by my second session it was completely eliminated. So like it's been now I think close to 8 months since my last session, and I've had no lower back chronic pain at all anymore. So I can vouch that this is like a hidden gem, a hidden medicine that I've never heard of. I'm sure others have never heard of. Everyone's heard of chiropractic practices, but this
yeah,
is something that is like a hidden child, I think, and we really need to speak about it and give a lot of awareness to what it is.
absolutely. I also feel as though there aren't enough options in the standard or the traditional approaches to addressing pain in Western culture. And I think also the influence of prescription medication and sort of treating the symptoms of the pain are traditionally our first route. But it tends to just put a band aid over the source of this pain that, like you said, it lies in the connective tissue, it lies in the body, and requires holistic treatment to really truly overcome with some success. Um, Now, Dr. Shante, what inspired you to pursue a career in this particular field?
Wow. Okay. So at the time, because this is my second medical discipline, my first medical discipline is pharmacy. I'm PharmD. I graduated from the College of Pharmacy from the University of Illinois at Chicago back in 2006. And I had practiced mainly in community. I've done academia, I've done inpatient, outpatient, clinical pharmacy. I've done uh, quite a bit, but majority of that time was in what we call community pharmacy, traditionally called retail. So that's the chain pharmacies, Walgreens, CVS. It's hard. Those how people identify what we call community pharmacy. I did over 17 years with the Walgreens Corporation, and practicing as a clinical pharmacist there, an immunizer, working in corporate and learning the business of healthcare with Walgreens. And I was actually getting ready to go to take my MCATs to go back to medical school. This was maybe 2 or 3 years after I graduated, because at that time I wanted to be more involved in patient care. I went to pharmacy school not really wanting to touch people, but then after being in the field, I was like, well, I actually do want to see about that. And again, I'm speaking from a perspective of over 20 years ago,
Mhm.
because now pharmacists are very patient centered in what it is that they do, but those options were not available to me nearly 20 years ago. And so that was behind a desire of wanting to sign up for my MCATs, which I did to go into pre med. I met a young lady that in undergrad, while I was pursuing pre pharmacy, she was pursuing pre med. And we ran into each other long after I had become a pharmacist. And I asked her, "Hey, did you ever finish medical school?" And she's like, "No, I went to I'm a naprapath. I went into this school in naprapathy." And I said, "Well, what is that?" And she was telling me all about it. And I went, "Wow, that sounds pretty cool." And in all honesty, the fact that she had all this flexibility in her scheduling and things, and that's what actually attracted me to it, because I was working 8 to 4, 2 to 10, 3 to 11 overnight at Walgreens. And I was like, oh, this is a stressful job here. Doing this isn't what I thought it would be.
Yeah.
But I went and looked up into, and I said, okay, I still didn't know a whole lot about it. So I didn't move on it. So it was like the seed may have been planted, but I didn't move on it.
Mhm.
Maybe a little bit longer, a little bit later, I decided, hey, you know what? Okay, I'm ready to go on and do what I was going to do. And I went online and I looked for natural medicine. At least that's what I thought that she had said to me or that she was explaining. But
Yeah.
when I Googled natural medicine, this school popped up, the National College of Naturopathic Medicine. And I looked and I'm like, it's not spelled right. What is that? And I went, "Oh, is it that place that she told me about?" And I went to the website and I saw that they had a heavy curriculum in nutrition, and I thought that that would just be awesome to add to my professional portfolio as a pharmacist, to be able to provide options. That's what we do anyway. We provide options to our patients, but I wanted to be able to now incorporate the diet more into my patient consultations and things like that. While I was in the school taking nutrition, because I was only taking nutrition courses, I hadn't decided to become a naprapath or anything, but I developed an injury, a frozen shoulder, and I was in excruciating pain. I couldn't raise my arm this high, 90 degrees, without excruciating pain. And the
Wow.
only options that were available to me at that time was medication and surgery. And it was a no for surgery. I did not want my body cut. That is the most honest and transparent. No, don't cut me. I didn't want that.
I feel
I
like that has a lot of side effects too. Like
well,
there's
I
a
mean,
part
just
there like the cons outweigh the benefits in many circumstances with surgery.
it's just the idea of being cut, undergoing the idea of it was terrifying. I was really young back then, and I'm still young now, but I
Right.
just didn't want to do that at that time of my life, especially to do that. And it was a definite no to prescription drugs. I have the narcotics key in my pocket as the pharmacist. I have access to those scheduled drugs. So I don't want that. So I had to go to work in pain. And what I ended up doing was I went to class one night and I was writing my notes, and I'm just cringing trying to write. And one of the instructors, who was also a technique instructor here at the college, and he said, "Shante, are you in pain?" And I said, "Yeah, my shoulder." And he said, "Come here." And then there were tables in the back in our classroom. And some of his classmates, my classmates in that nutrition class, was also in his technique class. And so he said, "Hey, let me show you guys something. Let's see what's going on with Shante." And so they took me back to the table, and I just remember he was just doing some things. And at first it was like, okay, be careful, and then I just know that when I got up, I mean, he didn't do a full treatment or anything like that. He just did some assessing and just did a little something just to get me over. So I guess that would have been the natural ibuprofen, right? Just something to get me over. So, but anyway, when I got up, I noticed something different. I was able to move without it hurting as much. It almost felt like a settling sensation. And I turned to him and I said, "Where's your office? I'll pay you cash. If you can fix this, I'll pay you cash for this." So
Yeah.
I scheduled an appointment with him. I went and got treated. It's about, I want to say, 60 to 70 minutes total treatment time. And he put this kinesio tape on my shoulders after he finished. And I remember this because a good friend of mine had a birthday party that weekend. And when I was there, I had something like a halter or something on, but the tape was still on the shoulder, and everyone kept pointing and asking, "What kind of tape is that?" And just illustrate that, yes, I'm out of pain now. I'm in a club that Saturday, and we, so we doing this, right? So I was like, okay, what is this naprapathy? What is this? I was here for nutrition.
Yeah.
Now I want to kind of let's go a little further down the rabbit hole here. What is this? I wasn't that convinced yet, even though I experienced there was still hesitation because I come from another side of medicine that just it that transition I struggled with because my colleagues, no one knows anything about it. We're talking nearly 20 something years ago. No one knows anything about it.
Right.
And I'm like, no, it's this, and they do this. And they're like, really, Shante? You don't think that maybe that was all in your head? Or, so it was very difficult. And the more I went there, I remember sitting in a class and I had a headache. And I was just sitting there taking notes, and I'm like, oh God, my headache. A different technique instructor said, Shante, you're in pain. I'm like, yeah, my head is this. She walked over around to my chair. I'm sitting in the chair. She did something. And and at first I'm like, okay, what is happening here? What is this lady doing?
Mhm.
And at first, still kind of not believing. But I did notice, like maybe after 5 or 10 minutes, the pain was reducing. Well, it didn't just snap your fingers are gone away, but I felt it reducing. And I went, okay, we're on to something here. Okay, this is 2 for 2 now. So as a pharmacist, we need to know how something works. And so now I need to know, how does this work? Because I have two experiences now that where I was in pain, you did something, I'm not in pain. Okay, let's just figure this out here. How do we do that? So I went on and decided not to go the route of the MCATs or pre-med, and I just continued on in this institution and became a full-time student in the Doctor of Naprapathy program. And that was yeah, that's how I ended up pursuing it as a um practice.
That's a really interesting background. I feel like a lot of our listeners may resonate with that story and also just empathize with what it feels like to be in chronic pain daily and feeling limited in the options that one has in order to treat it. Because of course there is prescription medication, but there are risks with that. There's risks with surgery, and we often aren't provided with a soft third choice. Like it's usually this or that. I also had an experience where I had an injury that resulted in some whiplash in my neck, as well as two torn herniated discs in my spinal cord. And the options that I were given were medication to manage the pain and surgery. But I didn't want to do surgery either. And eventually physical therapy and, a little bit of chiropractic, a little bit of massage, a little bit of there's something called dry needling, random, but there's other alternatives that I eventually found that did a better job at addressing the main issues of pain because they focused on the body. And I find personally that that was something that I really appreciated, having that additional option. And I appreciate that there are people like you out here that are driving forward this field and trying to make it more well known amongst the public.
Yes. Yes, when you start mentioning some of those other people, like there are so many others that are part of the arena when it comes to physical medicine and, pain specialty. As mentioned to Eric before, I don't like using this analogy because I have to mention the other practitioners. But if you were to take an osteopath, minus the prescribing authority, and you were to take a chiropractor, you were to take a physical therapist, a naturopath, a nutritionist, a massage therapist, an acupuncturist, and you were to morph all those people together, you have an naturopath. because we are able to we have some aspect of all of their training in our training, sort of like an one-stop shop type of, if you will. Whereas they are not necessarily able to dip and dibble and dabble across each other's scopes.
Mhm.
But within our scope and within the license that we hold here in the state of Illinois and some other states in the United States, we do have that autonomy and the capabilities of, and I think because we've adopted different practices and brought it into our own, in my opinion, it makes us a truly holistic medicine because of the other theories that we do consider, but we apply it as a connective tissue specialist.
Right. Erik, I've been told that you also are somewhat of a one-stop shop. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you do and how you can relate to Dr. Shante here and what she does, and how you two have worked together to accomplish some of the goals and overcome some obstacles that have come up in the process of working together?
Yeah, like naprapathy, we are like that in the business finance world. So we are a boutique firm that really helps organizations, both for profit, nonprofit, to really strategize and get to the same goal that we want to attain. So if you were to, like Dr. Shante's analogy, if you were to combine a CPA, a financial planner, and a business consultant together, you would actually find us. So we are the strategy, we are the tax and accounting, we are the finance behind every business. So we fill in the role of, I guess you can say, a CFO. So we fill in the role of a CFO with the full infrastructure that's needed behind the CFO, with the accounting team, with the finance team, and we help our clients with their organization to either start and scale and grow through our strategies and implementations of everything that you can ever experience as an entrepreneur that will obstruct you from your goals or prevent you from your goals. We want to make sure that we advise of those challenges coming up, and we advise the solutions to prevent you from being stagnant in those obstacles as you're growing your organization. And so, with the combination of us in different organizations like Dr. Shante, we've been able to help strategize and move forward to get to those next steps, to be able to grow the organization, make the organization very aware, and through our efforts and combined efforts, actually, we've been able to strive to a lot of big steps to where we are today. So I'm very happy. And, one of the things that I love is about our businesses, we get to work with individuals and organizations that really make an impact within all of our communities. And, from experiencing it firsthand, I completely believe in the vision. I completely believe in the medicine that naprapathy has, and I definitely want to make it to where everyone knows what this discipline of medicine is and how we can impact them in such a positive way without going to prescriptions and without going to unnecessary surgeries, which is huge. I have family members that have gone through many things and many prescriptions and many surgeries that never worked. And so, if we would have known beforehand about naprapathy, I mean, we probably would have been saved ourselves a lot of time and saves ourselves a lot of pain. So I'm happy to partner with such a great organization and individual like Dr. Shante. So that's I guess that's it. What we say.
Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Dr. Shante?
Oh yes, I do. I, I when I met him, I laid out a vision that I had that was larger than life. And let's, just considering what I walked into, most might have thought I was crazy to have come into the institute. This is a wonderful medicine, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. But just like many things. It comes with some flaws. Okay. We got here, when I got here 5 years ago, this school, this institution was on a decline in student enrollment. The licenses for this state was also on a decline. And I got here, and 8 months into my administration, the world was hit with COVID. And that was adding insult to injury, because we were already sinking, and, for lack of a better way of saying it, because we really had to restructure. And COVID, with the world shutting down and with trying to figure out how we were going to do this, that was a challenge for me. And so certainly having a group like Golden Tree, well, everyone kept saying, you're a CEO here, but you don't have a CFO. You can't be in the business and you don't have your CFO. I'm like, well, we can't pay a CFO, so someone who really knows what they're talking about. I know some things. I was able to bring a lot of what I learned from managing and running pharmacies from Walgreens and be able to apply some of those things here. But then getting hit with COVID, that just changed a lot. And even though there was a lot of programs and incentives out for organizations, it was extremely difficult for nonprofit 501c3 organizations to obtain a lot of that funding. The for-profit infrastructures all day long, but there was always just a little bit more that I had to do. And I only got one small round of PPP, couldn't get the other, but gratefully and thankfully, we did get that forgiven. But it wasn't enough help for what it is that we needed to stay afloat. So I look at us today and go, wow, I am just glad we didn't go extinct.
Mhm.
How are we able to do this with a decline in students? The admissions, I had to shut down admissions, and that was not very well liked in the naprapathic community, the decision to do that. But it was the most fiscally responsible thing to do when you have such low student numbers and not enough coming in. And then when you add a situation like COVID, where no one knows what is going to happen and everyone thinks they're going to die or whatever, when you don't know what's going to happen, then you didn't have people running to go apply to schools or college, if they thought that they could just walk outside and hail the strain and die in 3 weeks. So it was just a lot of uncertainty in that time period. And I would say, especially when 2021 got here. So it wasn't so much as 2020 as it was 2021, 2022, the aftermath of everything. Now we got to pick up the pieces of things. Now we don't have those incentives and extensions on things for businesses. Now it's like just they expected us to just be able to pop back and be able to just function and operate. And that is when our business strategy had to change. And I said, okay, it's time to make a huge change here. And that is why the name change took place and the addition of more programs of study to attract more students to the institution. As horrible as COVID was, one of the things that it did afford for us was the ability to really launch online learning. You didn't dare call yourself a doctorate level program in the academic world as an online program. I didn't do my doctor of pharmacy I didn't do that online. I had to go to the institution every single day from 8 to 4:30 p.m., Monday through Friday for 4 straight years. And that's how I received my training. But when all of the colleges and universities across the country had to now adapt to this new way, that was our saving grace. And that allowed me to now showcase us and be able to touch all corners of the globe, because naturopathic medicine is a global medicine.
Mhm.
It's just not well known here. But when you start looking abroad, you will find that other countries are very familiar with naprapathy and they use it in their mainstreams. And it's not considered as an alternative as it is in the United States. But we don't call ourselves an alternative, we call ourselves complementary. At the same time of going through that, we had to undergo our license renewal. Every licensed profession has a sunset in the state of Illinois. And just 1 year so 1 year after COVID,
Mhm.
our license was approaching its sunset. And so now I have to go down to the Springfield. I have to go down to Springfield.
Mhm.
I have to plead our case to the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation. We don't present well. We were already declining in licenses and student enrollments for this profession. We got hit by COVID. That number didn't increase during that time. I lost 50% of my workforce. And now I have to somehow give them the vision and hope that they would believe in it enough to keep and grant our license for renewal, which was the major determining factor of whether or not the doors would stay open. Because in good conscience, I could not see or fathom continuing a program and having students pay over $70,000 for a degree that they would not be able to have a license for on the back end. So I had to stop in my tracks of recruiting to go through the motions through the state medical society,
Mhm.
DPR, the Illinois General Assembly, lots of back and forth meetings to Springfield, getting so that they could get to know us because they did not know us or know who we were. And so that was a challenge. And thankfully, they did see the vision of naprapathic medicine. I told them that Illinois will be the national hub for naprapathic medicine and that everyone who came here will get a license from this state first, and then it will be reciprocated to the other 50 states wherever they want. But with our online programs and platforms, we will be able to recruit students outside of Illinois as well. And so those are some of the things. We changed the curriculum in 2019 when I got here, and I added some things. I added a little basic pharmacology to the program for students to understand, not for prescribing, but to know that the world is on drugs. And that's the truth of the matter. Everyone's taking something, and you should be aware of what it's doing to the body and how you can impact that person as a naprapath. And so explaining that to the State Medical Society, that was helpful for
Mhm.
us and pleading our case. And we were able to once again make history, just as we did in the 90s, the early 90s when we first got our license.
Mhm.
Uh, we were able to have our bill, the Naprapathic Practice Act renewal bill. It was passed unanimously both in the House and the Senate, and the governor signed it May 2022. So we hit the ground running, recruiting and upgrading and changing, and we just kept going. One of the state representatives that was a co-sponsor to our Practice Act renewal, someone that I knew when I worked with this other COVID company that I was helping advise them on. It was a gentleman that knew him, and he was saying something, and he's like, "Oh, do you know Dr. Shante from?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I know her." And he called, and I went and I met with him. I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" And we were talking, and I was telling him what I was doing now and the need for funding and this and that. And he was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I have someone I want to introduce you to because maybe you need to outsource that work. You know, they have this finance group." And that is how I met Erik, through those two gentlemen, by way of each person just connecting me to the next person, connecting me to the next person. And now, of course, the rest is history. And so that is how I got into contact with Golden Tree Wealth Partners. I went to their website, absolutely loved everything. The fact that everything was all inclusive, I didn't have to go finding all of these pieces. That was very beneficial to me because I was already overwhelmed and I already had lost a lot of my staff just from just the pandemic and everything that was, and it was in rebuilding. So that was, that was something. And when I got here, our books for something crazy. I did what I could. I'm not an accountant. I'm a doctor. I don't, that's not, it's such a boring job. I wouldn't want to do it. I did the absolute best I can. So it was a godsend to have found them, because even in helping us in our solutions, even if we weren't able to like pay for our service in full, they did provide guidance and say, hey, well, if you're able to do this or you're able to do that. And then now we finally have gotten to the point where, okay, now I can just pass this on to them, which is just so much relief for me because I don't care to do that part
Right.
anymore. I don't care to do that part. So I'm glad they like the accounting. I am glad. Uh, and so, and then with the strategizing, we have an asset. We own our building free and clear. So definitely picking Erik's brain all the time about like, hey, what can we do here? We need to be able to have solutions for this. This is what my annual budget is coming into. This is what I need for this. Other types of ways of lending, borrowing off the property. And so those are some of the things when we have our weekly calls, we're talking about that, how to access the capital that we need to make this national vision manifest. So I know that was a long answer. The team, sorry.
That's quite all right. No, your story is incredibly inspiring, and I really appreciated you going through some of the biggest obstacles that you faced, particularly during the time of COVID, having to shut down enrollment. I mean, all of that is those are hard decisions to make.
It is.
And those are major obstacles. And without the work and the efforts that you put in to keep the school alive, I mean, it was a make or break moment for a lot of universities. I think it was pretty universal that the enrollment went down at so many different colleges that whole programs had to be shut down. Like there were definitely a number of schools that got shut down because of it, and it's it's truly incredible that that was something you were able to avoid through your efforts and through all of the sacrifices and the commitments that you made to keep everything afloat. And it's really quite amazing to hear how you two have worked together as well to get closer to this vision of making NCNMU a household name here in the United States, where it's not quite as popular as it is globally. So
Yes. Yeah,
You
so
know,
it,
I definitely have to give more props to Dr. Shante. I mean, without her, I don't know if the school would have survived. I mean, the shape that it was in, from what she described to me, it was crazy. It was like an uphill battle with a gigantic boulder trying to push uphill, and it was an amazing effort, and pretty much a shoestring budget on top of that.
that that
And yeah, and we made a lot of sacrifices to get to the point where we are now, and we see the light at the end of the tunnel finally, and we're very excited to continue on and get this university where it needs to be and where it deserves to be, honestly. So I'm really excited for the next few months now.
Yes, yes. And I'm grateful for Erik, because I mean, you need people who believe in the vision. I had
absolutely.
to rebuild my team 3 times because I told them this is where I see us going. This is the vision, and not everyone was able to hold. And understandably so. Understandably so. I understand why some just they were like, "I'm sorry, I can't. I just can't do this anymore." And they moved on. And we only had just a few people here. I always like to mention my staff here, Dr. Taylor, Dr. Nellums, Dr. Mesha, our Dean of Academics, people who believed in the vision, believed in what it is that I put on that paper. Like, this is what that I'm seeking. We're going here. We're going to move beyond 120 years. We're setting up for the next 500, so this is where we're going with this. And so you just need people on your team that's going to go the distance with you, and not drop you because you don't have it right now, or, and so it was, and I had to deal with that a lot. Another thing that I would mention is that even, and also going through that, and I like to say that naprapathy has a guardian angel. I'm convinced that it does, because I can't see that, it wasn't just me. It doesn't feel like it was just me, because I am limited too in everything that I'm able to do. I'm also still a single parent. Just before I learned the news of the Practice Act renewal, which was just a huge victory for the profession,
Mhm.
for all of us.
Mhm.
But just months before that, my dad died. And so he was one of the first people I was ready to go tell. Guess what? All those hours I was putting in, and he was helping watch my son. And
Take your time. Your time.
I just wish he could see it.
And I'm sure he is proud right now too. So
I'm sure he's so proud of you. I
yeah.
mean, you are everything that you've described has been it's incredible. It's almost superhuman. Like the challenges that you've overcome, what you've built from where you were to start. I mean, this is a notorious journey that you've been on.
Yeah.
And you have truly overcome some massive challenges. And as a single parent as well, I mean, being a mom requires superhuman strength, courage, compassion,
Yeah.
patience. I can't even imagine. And it's heartbreaking to hear that your father wasn't around to celebrate these accomplishments with you, but I'm sure that he is so proud of you. And I think you're absolutely right, what you've been working on and the College of Naprapathy does have a guardian angel, and that guardian angel isn't just, it isn't just your father, it isn't just the ancestors, it's you. The school wouldn't continue to persist without you. It seems pretty clear. And it's because of passionate individuals like yourself and like your team and the support that you've explained you've had over the years that have taken us to where we are now.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
hope you feel incredibly proud of yourself because you should be.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it was, because I thought like it was kind of sudden. We really didn't know. I didn't know that he was as sick and the thing is in healthcare, even though I was the caretaker and I was taking him to the doctor, you can still tell them, don't tell the other family member. So there was a lot of me like, how didn't I see this? How didn't you see the signs? It wasn't until I saw him in pain that I went, wait a minute, you're in pain. I know what pain looks like. We people watch as
Yeah,
naturopaths. We watch people. It's a curse now. We can't help it. You guys are walking meat skeletons to us now. And so we can
right.
tell like, oh, that person's limping. Okay, here's my card. Come
I
see
know
us.
I get self-conscious when I walk around, Dr. Shante, like, "You're walking funny." I'm like, "Wait a minute. That's just my normal walk."
Yes, we can notice that,
Yeah.
Well, I
and
think
we,
sorry to cut you off. Go ahead, go ahead.
um, so those are, some of the things, and because of that, with the loss, and I got extremely backed up, and not having a dedicated accountant. Even though I tried, there were so many people, and I would give them our story. And I'm like, listen, this is how we present. I know it looks bad. This is what I inherited, and I'm just trying to fix it. Can you help us? I've had so many people who started on things and they never finished to the point where we were backed up years in our tax returns. And I had to go back to someone that the school used to go with because I knew that she was familiar with the institution, and we didn't have that little postcard. We had pages and pages and pages because we were not just an institution, but we're also a community clinic. So we have like a dual operation situation going on, and we were just ended up backed up on our taxes before that. And then one of the latest lady that we went back to, she had the account, and I kept saying to Eric, okay, so I'm gonna have you all do these years, but I'm waiting on these two from this lady, but I never heard back from her, didn't know what happened to her. I'm like, oh my God, what is going on here? And you need the prior years to be able to complete for the other ones. And
Yep.
finally learned, what was going on, we had discovered that she had suffered a stroke and
Mm,
that she was going through rehabilitation. She just didn't know she just didn't know because of what happened to her, you
mm,
know, and that was another kick in the gut for us because now we have fines and things from the IRS and it's I'm like, oh my goodness, and so to know that Eric and I'm like, okay, they can do this, they can help us, and so I said, okay, we're backed up on years for how can you help us to get through this part, and so that's where we're in. So people will have to see in the next episode how that's because we're in the middle of that right now, how we're overcoming that. But just to have that, that's it's
mm,
huge, it's major, because we're going to need those things to be able to apply for grants and things that we're going to need, especially for the scholarship programs that we want to do. We're trying to make the education more accessible to people, more equitable, more diversity inclusion in the field of naprapathy. And so that's what our goal is, to help to get people educated into this science and in this field. It's needed and it is time. And amongst all of the other people out here, there definitely will benefit from having us as part of their teams. And that's when I say that we're a complementary medicine. We complement every medicine on the planet. We don't replace it. We don't, we complement all of those things and we connect people to different types of care, pun intended. And so that is why I stepped in, given all of those challenges, because I feel like that in so many ways, naprapathy saved my life, especially during my childbearing years. We don't have enough tissues for that. So we'll come back there another day, another episode. And because people will ask, why did you do this? How could you go in and do all of that for a place that can't pay me what I made at corporate Walgreens? What is the reason? And I told Eric, I said, go get a naprapathic treatment and then you'll know why I'm here.
mhm.
I knew right after that treatment, so I'm like, okay, this is the real deal.
Yes.
Yeah. hmm So, really quick, I want to kind of also include our audience, Dr. Shante. How, if people were interested and they hear our conversations, they hear the struggles and the opportunity that the medicine brings to everyone in all communities. If anyone was interested, how would they partake if they want to volunteer their time or donate funds to the cause to get this university going further? Where would someone go to find out more information on how to do all that?
Sure. Our website, it is www.ncnmu.edu. And we have tabs on the footers, definitely in the menu for people if they want to volunteer, if they want to donate. We are getting our career page together now, but for internships, people that would like to come and they can learn on the job. We really want to encourage that, especially for young people that some people may feel a little intimidated about some of these positions and even in the program, applying for that and seeing that, hey, our naprapathic assistant is one of those great programs that's 36 weeks that allows for a person to come in and study and then become just go right into the workforce development piece that we have. And so I would say that the website, definitely they can email us at info@ncnmu.edu. They can follow us on all of the major social networks at NCNMU 1908, our establishment year.
Nice. And
Incredible.
if someone was like me that had some chronic back pain, injury, I will vouch and endorse. Anyone that has pain right now, you really need to go and get at least one session. And Dr. Shante, how would that have? How would they go about doing that? Which would be the most preferred for them? How would they do
Sure.
that?
Sure, they can still go to ncnmu.edu because we have a link to our health clinic from there, and it'll just say NCNMU Health. And so they can link from our school site, or they can just go to ncnmuhealth.org. So, it's all of the same letters, but just health on the end.org. And then they can schedule an appointment with our clinics. Our community clinic is overseen by licensed naprapaths. It's because we're a teaching institution, they are able to get treatments for reduced costs because they will be treated by an intern that's supervised by a licensed naprapath. But for the licensed naprapaths, it's typically a bit higher to see them in the field, but we are also able to accept insurance, the major insurance companies. That's one of the advantages to having a license. We're able to bill insurance companies as well. Um, we're still doing a lot of work in Springfield and Washington, D.C., so that we can get into those federal and state programs such as Medicaid and Medicare. So those are the only two that does not include us at this time for naprapathic services. However, we are recognized with all the other carriers: Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, Cigna, Aetna. Those are some of the other carriers that are out there that we have been able to successfully bill for our services for naprapathy. So certainly, if a person is uninsured or underinsured, I would definitely recommend coming to the teaching institution where it's a reduced rate for them to see an intern um, for care.
Right. Right.
Excellent. We will be linking all of this information in our description as well. So for viewers of the audience here that want to follow up and learn more about NCNMU, they can follow links in the description below. Also, if you're enjoying this content, please subscribe, like our channel, and follow us on Twitter and on TikTok. We've got them all. Anyway, I have just a couple more questions, if that's all right with you guys. First, I would love to ask you, Dr. Shante, looking back on your journey, what are maybe 2 or 3 key lessons that you have learned as a business owner and leader, and how do you apply these lessons in your day-to-day role?
Oh, wow. Oh my goodness. That's self-discipline. I work by a schedule now. I take phone calls by a schedule. You have to schedule a phone call. I'm sorry. Have to stay focused and on schedule. That is one of the things that was lacking. I felt all over the place until I definitely confined myself to this here, uh, moving with that schedule. On the side of, wow, it's been challenging um, to encourage the team, keeping the team encouraged, because I also had to learn how to. I had to break out the therapist hat, and lay a lot of people on the couch and get them through, which I did not know was going to be a part of the job, like the accounting, but in being able to um, support the team and be able to continue to encourage them, because many of them are here because they love and believe in naturopathic medicine as well, and they didn't want to see the place to go away. I did lose some team members on account of, maybe being overwhelmed and not being able to hold it in. But, when that happened, this one incident that I'm thinking of where I probably did blow the lid as the CEO with someone that was just being a bit excessive. And of course, she didn't know, um, but that is when my father died. And at that point, it was like, okay, what you're complaining about right now does not matter. Like it matters, but it on the scale of the things that's happening, everyone is hurting from COVID. Everyone is hurt. Everyone has these problems. And I'm not trying to diminish your yours and your feelings or anything, but I have to have a certain level of concern for everyone.
Mhm.
It's not just you. So that was one of the things in learning to communicate that and to just help everyone remember that it's not just them that's on this team. There's so many, I have different teams of people that I am managing or working with in some way, all for the benefit of the larger vision. It's just that certain people may be on this team, accomplishing these goals that are going to help the larger vision. And then I have to still stop and give the attention to another segment so those being able to manage my time properly across it and make sure that everyone is getting some level of attention and that's the thing. I think that one of the things in being a CEO, people they forget that you're human too, and that you have problems, you have bad days. You're just expected to just solve every problem, be able to do, something didn't go through, you got to fix it. And, that is what I've had to learn in how my approach and my delivery is in communicating these things to the team, to also keep them motivated and to make them feel valuable, because they are value. And sometimes when you're going through what we're going through, especially not being adequately funded, it is a little strain on it and things at times. And so yeah, has been I would say that being the CEO of a nonprofit organization has helped me learn in the reporting, because when you're in business for yourself and for profit, and maybe your other board members or your shareholders and so, it's a different dynamic when it comes to that. But in a nonprofit entity where an entire table of people you're reporting to all the time, that definitely, taught me not accountability. I don't want to say there's accountability, but how to work within a team structure. And then maybe the thing that you thought to do or wanted to do isn't going to be the direction that you go. And then how do you make it work and still work with everyone when you have that type of infrastructure or corporate structure, I should say, as a nonprofit. So having to report to a board, having to tell them everything along the way, that is something that I did have to learn how to do, because when I was in business for myself, that's not something that I needed to do. It wasn't required. So that's one of the things that I had to learn to do. And it has helped me seek counsel more than I did before. And so now I know moving forward, even in my for-profit ventures in the future, that I'm still going to value wanting to have those other perspectives there for me to shape the decisions that I make.
Incredible. Erik, is there anything you'd like to add, being also a, CEO of your firm?
I think common across the board with myself and our clients, being on your own and running an organization is extremely stressful. And I think learning how to manage your stress and your anxiety is crucial to keep you going, to keep you sharp with communicating with your team, with doing the daily tasks and necessary commitments that you need to complete. You always have to be on your game, and you can't be off your game for too long. And so, one of the things that I focused on is maintaining good quality personal relationships, maintaining your health, and this is why this is very passionate to me, because it does have a big impact with the results of your business. If you are not healthy, both mentally, physically, and spiritually, it's going to be very difficult to run any organization. It's going to be very difficult to lead a team to where you want it to be. And so the number one thing that I would say is, learn how to manage stress and anxiety as much as possible. Find a healthy way to vent. Being an entrepreneur is very lonely as well. So, half of our time is also being a therapist to our clients. And so when they're having these rough times and they're having these moments of like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? We have to be able to mentally and spiritually heal or at least guide our clients to, hey, this is something that we go through and we're going to get out of it. And all we need to do is really think our way through this obstacle. We've been here before. It's a gigantic roller coaster that we're going through. It's just normal. And, we'll get past this, the second we start to think through it. And critical thinking is crucial with any entrepreneur, any leader in the business. I think, having the patience and having the stress and anxiety management is crucial to success, because anyone can break down very easily here. And, all of a sudden, if it's, a lot of pressure, a lot of the whole world's on your shoulders, really. But you have to, push through it and push through it in a healthy way.
Great
Absolutely.
answers. Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Those were both really, really comprehensive responses to that question. I think that's great advice for our viewers. Um, Dr. Shante, is there if you could leave one, let's say one piece of advice for our viewers, to summarize your experience both as a business owner and also to provide guidance to those on a similar path moving forward, what would that one piece of advice be?
Hmm. Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. We spend so much time worrying about what's going to be, what shoulda, coulda, wouldas. We pause. There have been many times, even in this seat, this hasn't been a smooth ride. It has been plenty of mistakes,
Mhm.
but just taking action and doing it, because usually on the other side of that, that fear and anxiety about what might happen, if just think about if you don't act, because if you don't, you guaranteed will not make it. But just, yeah, so just keep moving. Just do it.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Eric?
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's always things that you don't want to push through, and there's always excuses to prevent you from doing what you need to be doing. And I guess of um, the fear of failure is huge, and you just have to go through. And even if you fail, you have to be able to learn from those failures and continue uh, to push along. And so for me, I always think, things are not good and things are not bad. So when things do happen, I don't judge it on if it's a good thing or if it's a bad thing. I just judge it on, okay, can we learn from it and can we move forward from it? There are different paths that come our way, and if we can move forward, um, things are meant to be where they play out. And sometimes you may think it's bad, but maybe down the road you might thank God that it happened. And so I never judge anything that comes, like an obstacle that comes in front of me. I never really judge it to be bad or good, because if I judge it to be bad, most likely I'll learn that it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. If I think it's a good thing, sometimes it might be the worst thing that's ever happened to me. So I don't judge things from good and bad. I just say, okay, this is part of my path and part of the decisions that have led me here. Now I just need to face it in the present and figure out a way of how to move forward, whatever that may be. And I think that's a great way, for me at least, to deal with things, and rather than look to the past, or rather than create anxiety about the future, I just take things one at a time.
Just do it and take things one at a time. I think that's some great advice. I really like that. I think we all have a fear of failure to some extent. We all hold ourselves to a very high standard, and it's easy to talk ourselves off of that ledge, but we don't get very far if we don't take. You just wrote a book, did you not?
I did. I did. And then to the point that we were making about, well, the point that I was making about just doing it. My
Mhm.
manuscript had been sitting on the shelf for 2 years, and I just published it. on Juneteenth, June 19th is when I published it, but it
That's
had been
recent.
completed at least for 2 or 3 years before I did it. Sometimes it's not always the fear of failure. Sometimes it could be the fear of success.
That's true. That's
Yes.
true.
So, but yes, I did. And now that I've done it, I'm like, oh wow, that wasn't so bad. That was okay. It just again to my point of just doing it, you find out it's not as bad as not saying that you're thinking that it's bad, but sometimes we're hesitating, because of that unknown. And so it's like I don't know what to expect from it. I'm actually having a really good feedback from it. Things are moving quickly. And people say, when did you have time to stop and write a book with everything you're doing? And it started long before the position. It's just when I got in position, it kind of went to the back burner. And then one day I, put things in motion. And another thing I'll say to people starting on business, things are going to happen in their own time. When I first got here, I was just running, 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 doing everything there, and just thinking that if I did it quickly, it will still happen. And what I've come to learn in these 5 years that things are going to happen in their own time. I don't know what that is or how that is, regardless of what you're doing, it's going to happen when it's going to happen. And so a lot of people in my industry ask, well, when is the college going to be this and when is going to be to this full glory? And my answer to them is in a form of a question. When does a baby walk? When it walks. It decides to when that baby decides to get up and walk, that's when it's going to do it. And so I said, well, since that the school is on the right trajectory, I've put a lot of infrastructure in place, a lot of plans and things. Just stay the course, stick to the plan and just let that move as it's going to move. And since you do have a little time because you can't rush the process, why don't you go on and publish your book? So that's what I did. Yes, the Type 4 Experience. That is the name of my book. It is a memoir that evolved into a how to transition to naturally curly hair guide. It was first just telling my story about my type 4 Afro kinky curly hair and all of the hair fails and all of the hair that I've lost over the years of just from doing things that just wasn't healthy, that wasn't, I talk a lot of historical context, behind the pride of African hair. I speak about how the difficulties in corporate, and wearing natural hair, how that is. I detail some stories there, detail and how it is in dating,
Mm.
detail it as far as even when you have children, how you're managing their hair, what does this look like? And then how do you do your own, and how do you want to look and how do you see it as beautiful still when a standard of beauty was never what looked like you for as long as you can remember. And, then we have that with the diversity in the biracial families where there's a parent that may not know much about that hair chemistry and they don't know what to do. And I'm like, hey, get this book because this is going to help you too because it applies.
Right.
And it's, so I'm finding that, we're having a lot of a lot of fun and a lot of conversations around it. And this is something that resonates not just with women, but men also. Their
Yes.
hair, and how they're styling their hair and how to care for their hair. And yes, my dedication was to my hairstylist, my long-term hairstylist that really helped coach me through. She was like psychologically going through that transition as well. And it's just been a lot of fun. And I'm just glad that I was able to get it out there.
Mhm.
One of my favorite motivational speakers said that when you tell your story, and in telling your story, it can be someone else's survival guide. So
Absolutely.
I tell my story now.
Definitely.
And we are so fortunate for that. I think that you are an incredible inspiration to a lot of young people, a lot of young ladies in particular who have ambitious goals and could really use a role model like yourself who has been through everything that you've been through and has still found success both in your professional life and with your writing, the books that you're putting out there. It's clear that you are a highly multifaceted individual, a lot of passions and a lot of heart. And it's clear that you are very highly invested in providing valuable experiences in healing and support, not only to the local community, but to the African American communities here in the United States and abroad in the field of naprapathy and beyond. So thank you so much again, Dr. Shante Griggs, for your
Oh,
time,
wow.
for your stories, for your compassion, and Erik, thank you so much for also joining us here on this call, sharing your experiences and some of the things that you've learned in your path. And just keep doing what you do. It's incredible and it's highly motivational.
Definitely. Well, we look forward to the future and telling our story as we further succeed with the college. And I look forward to our next episode.
I
Same.
agree. Well, thank you so much for listening to our viewers. This has been the Roots to Riches podcast with Dr. Shante Griggs of the National College of Naturopathic Medicine, or NCNM University, here based in Chicago. I've also had here with me Erik Cascio, who is the CEO and founder of Golden Tree Wealth Partners. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.